Part of getting ready to print is to have yourself be very well organized. What you want to go ahead and do is to have all your paper ready to go, your ink ready to go, and to also have your registration tabs with tape on them and have 8 extra pieces of masking tape adjacent to it. 4 would be so that you can tape your print down. The other 4 would be so you can secure the registration tabs once you put them in place. I would also suggest to have your paper put in the right direction so that the punched paper is next, so you can just sort of slide it in once you get everything all set the way that you want it. What I've done ahead of time is to go ahead and to mask my screen. So I put newsprint on it, taped the newsprint down. I've also gone and taken one of my new sheets of paper, put it in the registration the way that I want it, and taped a piece of acetate on top of that so that everything goes as smoothly as possible. What I don't want to happen is to all of a sudden think I have to go do something and I'm not really prepared to do it. So what I've done is just take some regular sheets of newsprint and I'm just going to stack them on top of my good sheet of paper, which also has the acetate that's right on top of it. I've mixed my ink. Since this is my first color, I can make it fairly opaque and also to use the white of the paper to boost the value of the ink. So we've got some retarder, which will help in keeping the ink not letting it dry. And pretty much I'm all ready to go. So I'm mixing that in. And what I'll do is put a very thin line of ink down on the top of my screen, like so, kind of running back and forth. And then using my squeegee, I'm going to hold my squeegee at about a little bit more than a 45-degree angle. And I'm going to put some pressure on it. And this is done really tightly, so nothing's going to move. And I'm going to screen my ink across the screen. At that point, I'm going to lift it up, and you can sort of see the image that's underneath it. And this is just a test, just to make sure it's all working right. I'm turning my squeegee around, and then I'm going to, holding it almost close to 90 degrees, I'm going to go ahead and flood my screen. And flooding your screen is really important in that you want to make sure that the image stays wet while you're doing other types of things. I'm going to do one other proof, just to make sure that everything looks the way that I want it to. And then I'm going to go ahead and to print my image on top of on the acetate, which is resting above my good sheet of paper. So I'm going to move these 2 to the side. And normally I would go ahead and put them in the rack. So that way then I don't have to remember where they are. What I'm going to do now is to go ahead and screen it directly onto the piece of acetate that's below. You can sort of see how it's all lined up down below. At this point, what I really want to do is make sure it's really well flooded, because the next part's going to take me a little bit longer in that I want to set my paper up the way that I want. And what I'm going to do is, you can see that it's all securely taped, and I'm going to untape the first couple pieces of tape so I can put my hand underneath and kind of center my image so that, one, I know that it is going to be straight. I'm trying to make it straight. And the other is that it's going to be even so that the borders on both sides will look even. And once I get that set, and if you really wanted to be precise, I guess you could measure it. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to hold my hand down on part of the screen and lift up a couple of the pieces. And then using the tape that I put out for myself, I'm going to tape on the part that's punched. I'm going to tape my print down so that the tape will hold it until I go ahead and put my registration keys in. And make sure that you keep your other hand on top so that your piece of paper doesn't move. I'm going to put 4 pieces of tape down. What you also want to do when you're doing this is try and keep your hands as clean as possible, because once you start moving around, things will kind of go all over the place. And then what I'm going to do is just take my pins, and still using my head, I'm going to slide, to keep the screen up, I'm going to slide the pins in, the little holes that I've punched, and I'm going to go ahead and just tape this down securely. Sometimes it doesn't want to go, so you might have to peel the tape back. What I also will do is, so that I can have a certain number of prints in my edition, I will also go ahead and kind of have 2 extra sheets that I can use as proofs. The next thing that I want to do is to take one of my pieces of newsprint that I've punched, that's under here somewhere, and slide that in on top. And so all the paper's been kind of punched the same. Because I don't want to proof this the first time on my good piece of paper. I want to go ahead and proof it on a piece of newsprint. And I'll go ahead and screen it through to make sure that it's really nice and clean in the way that I want it to look, and that if I have any other adjustments that I want to make, I can go ahead and do it at this point. And what I tend to want to do is to do 2 or 3 different proofs, so at least that way then I know that I can sort of see what my proofs look like as I'm putting my colors together, and they'll indicate if my print is all lined up. In a normal situation, I would also then be walking back and forth to go ahead and to put the prints in the rack so they have a place to dry. And you kind of want to aim to have your squeegee stay in the screen. So I'll do probably 2 more proofs, and then I'll go ahead and make my good prints. And like I said, we want to stack them in the racks each time. And this way, when I have all my prints going in the right direction, I'll also know that I don't have to kind of fiddle with where the paper is or anything like that. And at this point, what I'll do is to go ahead and to start printing my good prints. And knowing that everything looks consistent. I have some blips on the end here, which I'm not really keen about, so at that point, if I wanted to let those dry, I can let them dry on my screen and I continue to proof it. As this is going to be, my first print will be sort of a working proof. I'm not that concerned about having the blips offset, which you can see they're starting to dry at this point. Also, when I'm flooding it, just so that it's nice and even, I'll go ahead and flood it off the image. And what I'll do at this point right now is to pull my extra tape off and put it to the side of the table. Move my print, and then with the remaining pieces of tape that I have, I'll go ahead and tape down the rest of my registration tabs. If you run out of tape, you could probably use this right here. And at this point then, I'll go ahead and start to rack my images on the drawing rack. And I'll proceed in printing my full edition.